pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Welcome to our August 25th meeting. Hope everyone's having a nice summer. Do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Before you do that, we need to
Remove item.
remove item 4.
Okay, so I make a motion to remove item 3B4
Right.
from the consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? So do I have a motion for the consent agenda as
I make
amended?
a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
Any questions? No, all those in favor? Mr. Rarick?
Yes, retirements. This is a resignation. Middle school music. Jim O'Neill is leaving us to, she's moving to out of state. And at this time, I'd just like to introduce briefly our Picasset School principal. We had a very rigorous selection process, and I'd like to introduce to the committee Mrs. Deanne Riley. Deanne, could you get a stand? Deanne comes to us from Middletown with 20 years of teaching experience, and I believe she'll be a great fit. She's coming from a school that's similar to Picasset in Middletown, so we expect great things and expect great things from Deanne in the years to come.
So we lost a great teacher to Middletown, now we got one back. That's good.
correct.
Yeah.
And I read your resume, it was really powerful, and you're ALICE certified, so that's very good. Thank you very much. Okay, and who else, Mr. Rarick?
Middle school art is a transfer. It's really not a new position. And I just got to go to the name, I apologize. I'll write it down.
So our elementary art teacher, right?
Yeah, it's our elementary art
Yep.
teacher. Elaine, do you know the name off the top of your head?
Yes, Mary Salvador.
Mary Salvador. That's just a transfer. Up. Fort Barton, 2/5 remedial math, Kristen Vanagan. And we had 7 teacher assistant positions. These were because we needed 6 part-time kindergarten aides because we went to full-time K. People we hired were April Souza, Fort Barton, AM, Elizabeth Souza, PM, Fort Barton, Dawn Raymond, Fort Barton, PM, Denise Porter, Picasset, AM, Laura Ronan, Picasset, PM, Joanne Raposa, Ranger, PM, and Lisa Monkovitz, Ranger, AM. And one of those, the additional, there's 7, one of those 7 is replacing somebody who became a secretary. So
There was
it's
some
replacing an
movement.
existing position.
Okay,
So 6 of those are new positions
thank you.
that we have in our budget.
And we welcome them all, and we also thank the music teacher for all the work she did, Mrs. O'Neill at the middle school. And we'll be going out for that now, Mr. Rarick?
We have a transfer request, but we've also bid the position as well.
Okay.
How about the elementary art? Did we bid that?
That's out,
That's out?
That's being bid as well. That's being advertised this week.
Okay, thank you.
Lots of movement this year.
Yeah.
More so, it's the most moving we've had this year.
Yeah.
Is there any correspondence?
No.
No? Okay. Now we'll wait for,
You can do the other 2 items, B and C.
we could do the other 2, yes, okay.
I'll make a motion to move up 6B.
Second.
All those in favor? Discussion possible vote, Mighty Might Running Club, Mrs. Waddell? Oh, the poor microphone has to go all the way down. We'll put that in the budget, Mr. Rarick.
Oh, I've heard you talk loud.
She can't, she doesn't need it.
I was able to, but I can't right now, I'm sorry. I'd like permission to apply again for the 3rd year in a row for the Mighty Milers grant. The Mighty Milers program, running program, is sponsored by the New York Road Runners, who sponsor the New York Marathon. And Fort Barton School is one of 230 schools in the country that do this program in the schools. And I just found out today that we're actually one of the 3 programs in the country that's run by a principal.
Oh, nice.
Apparently, all the rest of the schools, they have other people who run it. And during our first year, 2013-2014, we had 112 students complete our program. The second year, last year, we had 116 children complete the program. I run the program twice a week during recess time. We begin with laps, and I teach the children about how to safely run. It's just really, it's a great program. It's a program that all kids can be successful in. And at the end of the year, award ceremony, kids receive medals, certificates, and it's really just an uplifting, fun program. And this year, I'd like to also ask permission to bring it one step further, and the High School Booster Club has had some fun runs, and so I'd like to ask permission for our Mighty Milers program to participate in the fun runs as a school. I think it's just one more incentive for our little club. I think it'll be really great for the kids. So I'd like to ask permission to apply for the grant and to participate in the fun runs.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the request to, it's actually just to apply for the grant, not to run the program, or you have the...
To apply and run the program.
To apply for the grant and to run the Mighty Milers Running Club at the elementary school, which would include participating in the Tiverton High School Booster Fun Runs.
Do I have a second? It's a wonderful program and for the health and wellness, and you'll have to come to one of our meetings and talk about it. And we should go up and join you in the little run. That would be fun.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? No? All those in favor? Should we do that last one, Mr. Reardon? Okay. Social emotional program proposal, Mrs. Waddell?
At Fort Barton School last year, school counselor Elaine Salvador and guidance counselor Patricia Bird piloted a social emotional program, and it was called Zones of Regulation with 12 of our students. And it was from November to May. And the 4 zones of regulation coordinated with states of emotion. And the green zone is about students being calm, learning ready, and focused. The blue zone is when students are sad or upset. The yellow zone is when students are anxious, jumpy, or unsettled. And the red zone is when students are angry. And the colors help coordinate students and help give students language to identify what the feelings are. And once the students identify the feelings, then they start learning how to problem solve and how to prevent different behaviors. And it was very, very successful with the pilot group. So this year, I'd like to pilot the program at Fort Barton School school-wide. So we have common language in all of our classrooms. Mrs. Salvador, who has already taught the whole program, she is going to teach the program during health classes, and we'll get posters for all of the classrooms, so that way all the students will be able to see all of the posters. They'll be able to reference it during the days. She'll also go into classes and do mini lessons to help reinforce it. We'll also give all the materials to our classroom teachers. We just think that it'll really be a nice element, and I'd be more than happy at the end of the year to come back to the committee and let you know how the program went.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the request to expand the social emotional program at Fort Barton School.
Do I have a second? Do I have any questions? I just had one question, Suzette. They don't have to wear the colors, like if they're angry, they don't wear red around the school, do they? Something like that?
No, what happens is if a student, say if a student's having difficulty sitting in their chair, and a student came down to the guidance office, or a student requested to come down to the guidance office, sometimes students, especially very young children, they don't necessarily have all the words to explain all of their feelings. So what Ms. Bird would ask is, the students is, what color, can you tell me what color you're feeling? If they couldn't explain in words, what color are you feeling? And from the colors, then she would show them the different cards, and then the cards, she'd be able to figure out what the feelings are, and it helped the children a lot. So it was a very nice program, and I think it's nice because it would be able to be adapted from kindergarten through grade 4.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No? All those in favor? Okay. Now, Carol, you do that one.
Yes.
I have to recuse myself. It's very sad because I love to talk about this.
Item 6A, Building Security Alice Training. Mr. Rurick?
Yes, gosh, several months ago, Dr. Larkin mentioned that he saw a presentation, I believe, at one of your school committee association meetings, and said that he might be, it's something we should pursue. Subsequently, I met with the chief, the captain, all these fine officers here, and also Lieutenant Costa to talk about ALICE training, what it would mean. We concluded or I recommended that they come and speak to the committee, explain to the committee what it is, to see if it's an avenue that we would like to proceed regarding our school security. So I'll turn it over to the chief and the captain and Sergeant and Officer Black. Sergeant Raymond.
Thank you for having us. First of all, I'd like to thank the school committee, and in particular you, Mr. Rarick, for your open door policy you have with the police department, and not just this, but anything, questions we may have with the police department. Captain Jones did initiate the program, and he was the officer who selected the fine officer you have before you tonight. And with that, I'll let them take this over, but I do want to thank you for your policy, working with the police department on all matters. Captain Jones?
It's a mutual thing. We work very well on a number of issues over the years.
Good evening. My name is Captain Jones. With me tonight is Sergeant Dan Raymond, and you know your school resource officer, Liam Black. We were approached by the superintendent based on the recommendations of the committee to look into the ALICE training. Those of you who are unfamiliar with ALICE, as of 4 o'clock today, your newly minted ALICE instructors sit before you. They took the training for 2 days up at Rentham, sponsored by the Rentham Police Department. So I'll save some of the details of the ALICE training and what they experienced. Since the events of Columbine and Sandy Hook, building security and security in your schools has become paramount, which is why we have developed a relationship with you, and also why we reinstituted the School Resource Officer Program. Part of his duties is to ensure we have a safe environment for your students and for your administrators and staff. The ALICE training, we feel, is the next generation of safety, where it utilizes your staff to work with police and also to recognize issues. There has been controversy with the ALICE training, and a lot of that misconception we'll talk about with the officers as far as utilizing students in some sort of law enforcement role, which is not the truth whatsoever. The students and the teachers are there as eyes and ears for police and law enforcement. Your students, your staff, you know your students best. You recognize issues that come up on a day-to-day basis, and then you can move them or report them to law enforcement before they become incidents. The analogy that we were talking about with the chief just prior to coming here to kind of address some of the issues that come up with utilizing students in a safety role is we all commercially fly. And when we get on a flight, the flight crew, they go through all the safety procedures. It is federal law that if a member of the flight crew asks you to do something, you will assist them in a hijacking, in a tragedy, in a heaven forbid, a plane crash. The ALICE training is built on the same philosophies. What we'd like to do, with the permission of the chief and the committee, is work with your staff, train a couple of members selected by you to work with Sergeant Raymond and Officer Black to train the trainers, to train your staff so you can better recognize what the ALICE training is. Sergeant Raymond hand out some information material. They'll go over what the basic premise of or the philosophy behind ALICE is, but what we're looking to do is improve the safety of your schools. So with that, Sergeant Raymond.
Thank you very much for having us.
Again, myself and Officer Black attended this training the last 2 days and opened my eyes to what the lockdown, some of the flaws in the lockdown procedures that we have. And what Alice does is give you a better chance of survival. If should something happen to one of the schools here in Tiverton. What I gave you here tonight is some frequently asked questions that have been asked of Alice before. So if you have questions for me now, you probably better answer them based on what I learned today. I can tell you, myself and Officer Black were part of scenarios that were done with the lockdown system. And that was actually the very first thing that we did. And we were in the same classroom together. And it was a point where we have right now, where you lock the classroom door, we all huddle in place, okay? Unfortunately, we couldn't secure the door, okay? And I know that's probably gonna happen, especially if you have substitutes, or possibly could happen, where the locking of the door might not happen because just the school day goes on. But he was able to enter the room, and because of the procedure that we have in place, or that they had in place for just the lockdown, came in, point blank, boom, 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 boom. And being a police officer, the first thing you want to do is act, and we couldn't do anything. Just sat there, and that was it, okay? Alice doesn't allow that to happen, because it gives you certain things to do in the event someone intrudes your school. And it goes with the acronym alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate, okay? We're trying to help you survive, your students to survive, and make sure that the environment's still safe for all of you, okay? So, I don't know if you want to give me some questions. Like I said, it might be better if you want to throw questions at me. And
Is the training targeted to the age group? Like your training in the elementary schools would be different than your training in the high school, or not necessarily because you're training staff?
Yes, it's age appropriate.
Okay.
It's age appropriate. So we wouldn't ask, your kindergartners, third graders, because part of one of these things where if you're in a room where you cannot evacuate, because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you away from the threat. Like in the higher grades, if you're inside of a room and you can't get out or whatever, you're going to try to get one of these tables or something heavy, a bunch of chairs or whatever, and try to get that door so that he can't get in, okay, or she can't get in, whoever's trying to get into the room. And if that's not possible, you can't do it fast enough because it's that immediate. One of the things was we took that tennis balls, okay, just as a, because they had nothing else, we couldn't throw school books in someone else's school, and just throw it towards his face. That way it disrupts him from trying to get some sort of aim and try to shoot you.
So you're training the teachers, or you're training the students?
Well, you're training the teachers, but it's all part of drills that we would have to go through in order to get you guys to kind of, if a scenario were to happen, you would know how to react.
Okay.
Because they've shown that there's 3 times more likely, you're 3 times more likely to survive an attack. Or there's 3 times fewer casualties, from reacting rather than sitting in place and becoming just, quote unquote, from the training of sitting up.
So would this be in addition to the training that we already do?
It's actually very similar to the training we do now. The only difference is this is a worst case scenario. So everything would remain the same, like if we call the code red, lights go off, doors are locked, all the students are put in the corner where they can't be seen. Let's say an intruder does get in. That's when Alice comes into play.
So you introduce some more scenarios
Yes.
beyond what we do now?
Yes, that's when, the students would be informed to grab anything they could, a book, a desk. They would, barricade, they would take this desk, barricade that door, chalk block it, throw anything they could at the suspect just to make him flinch a little bit. And just that split second might be enough for someone to grab that person's arm. And, that person may or may not, sustain some kind of wound, but it's better than having a group of 20 kids in a corner, not moving, static targets, and just, basically being executed.
If I may too, it's important to understand that this is a core program, so whatever you're comfortable with and the staff is comfortable with, that's what we're going to implement. So what we did with training the 2 officers was they got just a whole big curriculum of all the available options, which this is something that we can tailor to suit and meet our needs. So clearly, we don't want to utilize our elementary school students in a scenario that would put them in danger.
But unfortunately, when it comes to a lot of these incidents, as we know, when it comes to the higher grades, such as high school, normally the suspect involved is someone who's known to the students and the staff. So it builds, what we're looking to do is, under certain circumstances, possibly barricade students or not use students as law enforcement, but make them and recognize them to understand that they have to be responsible for their safety. Sergeant Raymond brought up a good point too before about we've practiced fire drills. And when the buzzer goes off, it's almost Pavlovian. The teachers get the book, all the students line up, you go to predetermined places. Alice is along the same lines. So, like Officer Black said, we want to incorporate what we feel is appropriate, what you feel is appropriate, to your safety plans that already exist.
And just for example, we listened to an audio tape from Columbine, and I know there's some young individuals in here tonight, so I don't want to get too graphic, but I think 14 of the lives lost in Columbine were in the library, and the librarian was on the 911 line, and she was on the line with dispatch, screaming and telling the kids to get under the table, hide under the table, hide behind the bookshelves. She didn't know there was an exit door that led to another room, and that room had a door going to the outside. So she was doing the best she could. She just, was, at the time she was terrified. She was just telling the kids, get under the table, hide, just hide, get under the table, get under the table. And they made their way. They could hear gunshots in the hallway, and Klebold and Harris came into the library, and they lost 14 lives. Whereas, if she had a strategy in place, if she could have, looked around or thought beforehand, saw a door, guided those kids, because kids are listening in a situation like that. They're looking for guidance. If they hear gunshots on the other side of the school, and they know they can exit this door safely and go out the main office, they could do that. But they just stayed in the library, and they were hiding under the desk, and 14 lives were lost.
I work for a district that has instituted Alice, and we did do training. We first trained the teachers. It's a grade 7 through 12 district, and then we did a training with students. I think it is very effective for that age group, especially at the high school. They did tell us we have to be comfortable with high school students, especially saying they're going out the window. Mm-hmm. And that's their decision, and you have to let them go. And you may stay because you may have kids who can't get out the window. I have no idea how it would work in a K through 6 setting.
Yeah, it's difficult. I totally agree with you.
Do you have any sense? Because it sounds like what you went through is what we went through and what we had our kids do. You push furniture against the door, you get books, you practice throwing them at the intruder, you practice taking down the intruder. You can do that with kids who are 12 through 18 or 19. What do you tell K through 6 students to do that's different?
I think no matter what, K through 6, you have to make it as difficult as possible for the intruder to get in the room. They're looking for soft targets because they know the police are on their way, and as soon as statistics report, as soon as police arrive, as soon as they hear sirens, they don't want a conflict with someone else that has guns with better training, someone that's going to shoot back. So I think 98% of the time they take their own life. So they're looking for soft targets. So if they get to a door and they go to open the door and it's just jammed a little bit, or they can't get in,
More barricades.
they're going to go to the next door. And in that time, we're coming. And we're coming fast, and all of us are coming. So it might just be, they might just hear the sirens, and that might be enough for them to take their own life and basically end the threat.
But that's where you're saying that it'd be very different training.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it would come down, especially at their age group, where it would really come down to more education and, and telling them, not to be afraid, because they're going to be more frightened than the kids that are 7 to 12th grade. And I know that Alice does have, they have their books out there for kids to be able to read and go through. I think one of the books says it's don't be scared, I'm prepared. So it's something where they can start learning how to prepare themselves to, God forbid, a situation comes to play. I don't know if they'll know how to react, but they read, they absorb this information. They may be able to know how to react and know what to do. And the thing is, when we talk about the fire drill thing, ultimately we want you to get out of the building because it's going to save more lives.
like I said, if it's a fire drill, you're not gonna stay in a burning building, you're gonna get the hell out of there. That's what we're looking to do with Alice, to evacuate the building, get him out of the building.
And it's
if you have
important to note that elementary schools are the schools that have the exit outs.
Yeah,
Except
right.
for the second floor at Fort Barton and at Cassett. All the other rooms have exits directly out. So that's something that we would work with the police department if we were to implement this. You know, when do you exit? Because right now it's huddled down without giving away anything. It's not what they're describing here.
I'd like to interject that if you've all seen on television at different times, when something happens, the person or the interviewing will come out and say, I just reacted. Training makes you react when you're training. Training is a purpose, so you go right back into gut instinct, if you will. You react quickly. Repetitive training over and over again. You just fall into that mode. And again, age appropriate is absolutely applicable in all these cases. But again, training, repetition is going to make people react certain ways. We're just trying to, for lack of a better word, limit the casualties. If we can save people, that's what we're trying to do here. And it's drastic to say it that way, but that's what we're trying to do. And there are bad people out there, so we're trying to limit that as best we possibly can.
And part of it is also teaching our students, especially our older students, to problem solve. And, you know, we've all learned when there's a crisis situation, people need to work together, think and act quickly, and that's how you limit the casualties. And our older students are quite capable of being, you know, helpers.
Did they talk about OODA loop?
Yes, the OODA loop.
OODA loop, OODA, O-O-D-A, observe, orient, decide, and act, actually came up from the Air Force. When fighter pilots are going into combat and dogfighting to go against their opponents, they go through this, we all do it when we're problem solving, going through it mentally. We observe our situations, we orient to that situation, we decide what we're going to do, and then we finally act. Active shooters do this. So to counter that, what we're trying to do with this program, the underlying philosophy, is mess up their OODA loop by having students, staff, police, who are thinking ahead in that dogfight. So our OODA loop by this training is going to be, in the event of this, we're going to do that. And that's going to be unintended or unexpected consequence that an active shooter or intruder is not going to expect. So their OODA loop is going to be messed up, and we're going to have that advantage, which could be an escape. It could be with high school students taking them to the ground. It could be elementary school students being able to, that couple extra seconds to get through that door. So that's what we're trying to preach and practice with this.
That window, as you say.
Here's an example of elementary school students, like they can move their own desk. They move them single file against the door all the way back to the wall. So when the intruder went to push the door open, because all the chairs are stacked single file, it only opened like a quarter inch. So the intruder moved on to the next one, so they could open that. So if something like that, I mean, you gotta improvise, adapt, overcome. That might take a little bit. Who knows where the intruder is? It might be a better option for them to escape. Go out a window, down a hallway. It's difficult to say.
I'll tell you, I was in one of the scenarios, actually a few of the scenarios, I was the bad guy. Believe it or not, I was the bad guy. But I have to tell you, we did the first scenario with the actual instructor came in and did that. I told you, he came up to us and we were helpless. But when the next thing was to barricade the room, I tried, and I'm a good-sized guy, I tried everything I could to get into those rooms. I just couldn't do it. And it just slows down what that person's intending to do, and that's to take out as many people as he can. And I couldn't get in the rooms. I would try to get the pistol in there, couldn't do it. Just couldn't do it. So it's giving you a fighting chance to survive. And one of those rooms in there, there was one group, unfortunately, they had a room where they couldn't escape. And they had that thing locked down. I could not get in. I could not get in. But I also want you to understand that, and I know some people were saying that was controversial, and we talk about human targets and stuff like that. This is not meant for you to get into a fight with this individual. It's called countering, and it's not fighting, but it's to take back control, to take control of the situation before he does and takes out so many more lives in the room. And I know you wouldn't be doing what you're doing right now because you love your students, you love doing what you do, okay? But it's a lot, that's a last resort when you're going up against someone, okay? That is a last resort, okay? And it's also a personal choice. So we're not asking you to go in and, but again, you're giving your children in that room a fighting chance to survive. Because they don't care who they're taking out, they're just going in and it's numbers. And until we get there, that's what they're gonna keep doing.
They're looking for soft targets and that cowards.
Right.
They're gonna have a plan, and our plan has to be better.
And they're not great shots either. We're skilled, we go to the range, we shoot, we do active shooting. What was it, less than 50%?
Moving targets, very difficult.
So they know. If you're sitting there, they're gonna go boom, 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 and move on to the next room. And that's it. And I don't mean to sound graphic, but that's exactly what they do. They don't care. They don't care.
And part of the reason why I think Lorenzo chose in elementary school is he was 6 foot tall, maybe about 100 pounds. So I think he knew that he could be overtaken by a middle school or a high school student. So that's probably why he chose
A softer target.
a soft target.
I mean, and there was the Cho from the Virginia Tech shooting. He was at a range and nobody picked us up. He had targets sitting on the ground and was walking doing this boom, 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 just so we could practice this. He knew people were going to be locked down in place. So that's what he did, and he chained the doors so we couldn't get in. But once he heard the sirens and us blast through, or police blast through with the shotgun to get the doors open, that's when he ended his life. Okay? I mean, there's another example, Virginia Tech, there were, just from this graph over here, there was a room that was barricaded, one room that was barricaded. There were 12 people that were present, there were 0 that were killed or wounded, because they ended up hopping out the window. But in other rooms, they weren't so lucky. Most of them got down. In the first room, 10 were killed, 2 were wounded. The next one, they was jumped and then barricaded. They had 2 killed, 3 wounded. Excuse me, 19 present, 2 were killed, 3 were wounded. There was another one, they had 19 present, 12 were killed, 6 were wounded. And they barricaded the room after he went in the first time. There were 13 present, 5 were killed, 6 were wounded. But the second time he came back, he wasn't able to get in the room. He made it that much tougher. Okay? Like I said, ultimately we want to get you out of the building so you're in a safe environment. Okay? And the other thing too, I know the next question is going to be, well, what if there's a second shooter? 98% of the time, it's usually one person. Is there a possibility of somebody else being outside? Maybe, but it's a very low probability according to the data and statistics that have been done on it.
We recognize this is scary stuff, but it's a reality, something that you've all talked about professionally, personally. It's what we deal with, unfortunately, in our nation. Our purpose is kind of, if anything comes out of the ALICE training, other than it's taking a mindset that we have as law enforcement today, where we have our problems today in law enforcement in our nation, that we're reframing, retooling, relooking at problems and policies. It's train, 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 train. And if someone's going to build a better mousetrap, then ours is always going to be better. And I think with the ALICE training coupled with the existing policies that we've already have put in place, and working with your staff, enjoying the great relationship that we do, it's looking to deter anyone who might think that the elementary school is a soft target, or the library. That's what we're looking to do. And also increase the awareness of the students, teachers, and staff, so these incidents will never happen here.
That does kind of seem like it's like the next step. We've learned more.
What I took away from it, and the officers can certainly correct me if I'm wrong in understanding it this way, the basic principle is that there's this tension between the chaos of the event, the control that you're trying to reassert, and time. And that the paradigm to date is shelter in place. And that's really just potentiating the vulnerability that's already there. What is encapsulated in this acronym is a more reactive paradigm whereby you, recognizing that it's chaos, it's going to be variable, therefore your response has to be variable based on the situation itself as well as the materials at hand, if you will, in a classroom, in a library, in a swimming pool, in the woods, as well as the age of the children. And I think it's fantastic that we now have 2 officers that are trained in this. And I believe the next step would probably be to try and start some sort of choice of staff training, as well as how does this articulate with our plans that we already have in place, as well as with the community partners, our transportation company and stuff like that. It's, you know, again, I think trying to, recognizing that there is no control of chaos, it's what do you do to try, as you were saying, the observe, orient, decide, and act. So, you know, it seems like a much better way of trying to think about these things. What does seem to hold over is the drill aspect of it as well. So every kid knows what to do when there's a fire drill. They go line up at the door and they go out. And that, and certainly this is true in medicine as well, when you're sort of trying to deal with a crisis situation, the thing you fall back on is your training, what you've done. You know, you practice it with these dummies, you practiced it with, you know, whatever you had that wasn't real. And that's actually what brings you through that crisis as well as can be, recognizing that no crisis is completely predictable.
Sounds good.
We respectfully request that they adapt this and add this to the repertoire of taking care of these kids. Put this as another added feature toward your training and protecting the young people under your care.
So going forward, Bill, we'll just approve the adoption of the program, and then you'll work with Chief
We'll continue
to figure out
We'll take
where
the
you'll
pieces,
start.
we'll meet like we've done in the past. We'll meet, they'll explain to me, you know, they understand how we operate. Then we'll pick what pieces we think best fit us. Then we'll start doing the appropriate training. At some point, we come back to the committee in executive session to explain to you what we're at, you know, what's actually being done, so that people know what our plans are. You know, when we met back in the spring, from what the captain and the chief were telling me, I thought it was a good idea based on what they were telling me. A lot of what you just heard from everybody here. Because we do have such a great relationship with the police department, I have complete confidence that we'll be able to adopt different pieces successfully to make what we do even better and make it safer for our kids.
So you just need a motion to
Just need a motion so you know that we're doing this.
So along with that, you know, I think, is it Smithfield and North Smithfield has already adopted this?
Middletown has, I don't know, yeah.
I mean, they seem willing to share with the district itself, you know, districts, what they've put in place. A lot of that seems very useful.
Well, before you take your motion, do you have any questions for us at all? Anything that might have, anything else that you might have an interested?
Principals?
I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
Well, again, as we do, once we agree with the modules, we'll then meet with the principals. You know, it'll be gradual, at my level, then the principals, then we figure out the training.
Right.
And then we let the committee know, okay, we're now going to be training to do A, B, and C. And so it'll be a gradual changeover or adoption.
And just one more thing before you, the instructor even explained it to us, this is not to replace your lockdown, it's to enhance what you have with Alice. So it's not to give it a lockdown.
Improve what we do.
Right, improve on what we do.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I will make the motion to approve the ALICE training program.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you very much.
Very much.
Thank you, Dr. Allison. Thank you, Mr. Watt. Any reports on Allison? No, Mr.
No.
Anybody, any reports on
We
Allison?
open school on Monday.
That's
an important announcement. We open school on Monday.
School starts
Teacher
on Monday,
professional.
August 31st.
It's kind of what we're here for, but in case anyone doesn't know, our opening on Monday.
Executive Carol.
I make a motion to go into executive session to discuss item A, superintendent's draft contract under SS 42-46-5A2, Item B, Director of Administration and Finance draft contract, SS42-46-5A2. Proposed Administrator's Contract, SS42-46-5A2. Contract Negotiations, Maintenance Director and Technology Director, SS42-46-5A2. NEA Negotiations, SS42-46-5A2, and School Safety Plan under SS42-46-5A3.
Thank you. Second. All those in favor? Yes.
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 All right.